After a few months away, the GP4 OC News returns for a remarkable 8th series, and as you may have noticed if you didn't watch the last episode of Series 7, the GP4 OC News has a brand new look and brand new music to mark the fact that the 2021 season will be the first season of the fantasy era. Before we get on with the news, let's look at some of the features of this new layout. Unlike in previous seasons, the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships for the top class will both appear at the same time instead of them appearing in different transitions, and on top of that, all the drivers and teams in both championships will appear instead of just the top 10. We have a brand new feature in the OC News which shows what seats are still yet to be confirmed. On the right of your screens you will see a black box which has all the 11 teams for the 2021 season, along with the drivers that have been confirmed for those seats, along with the seats that are still yet to be confirmed. This has been included to inform the viewer which seats are yet to be announced. A driver will appear on it once they have been announced. On top of that, you may have noticed that there isn't a scroll on the bottom anymore. This is particularly a benefit for me, as getting a working scroll on Premiere Pro was a huge nightmare for me, so it has been removed and it should hopefully take less time to edit these videos. Finally, the white box which shows the news headlines is slightly changed. Unlike in previous seasons when the news bulletins came up straight away, they will only appear now when a driver has been announced. This has been done to add anticipation and also increase the watch time. Cheeky, I know. And that's the new features. So now that you know what each feature does, let's take a look at what we know already, along with the anticipated rumours that have dominated the paddock. The first one we know, of course, is that 2021 will be the first season of the highly anticipated fantasy era. This means that the OC will no longer follow what happens in the real-life Formula 1 season, and it will instead carve its own path. This will mean that there will be a good chance that the pecking order could shake up throughout each season, which will add an extra element of uncertainty during each sign-ups, with the drivers not knowing which teams will be fighting at the front, which teams will be fighting in the midfield, and which teams will be fighting towards the back. It also means that there could be a good chance some teams could pull out and be replaced or even get taken over. Speaking of which, as we have known for a while, Manor will be pulling out of GP4 OC at the end of the season after 11 seasons in the sport. After so much speculation, it was announced on a Sunday before the French Grand Prix that Italian car manufacturer Lamborghini will make their GP4 OC debut in 2021, replacing the outgoing Manor. This came as a surprise to a lot of people, as when people were making their predictions on who the 11th team would be, not many said Lamborghini. People were suggesting manufacturers such as Porsche, Ford, Toyota, BMW and even Subaru, due to the fact that host Yuri's everyday car happens to be a Subaru. But in the end it turned out to be Lamborghini, and along with forming a new team they'll also be using their own engine, meaning that in 2021 there'll be 5 engine manufacturers: Mercedes, Honda, Ferrari, Renault and now Lamborghini. They'll be the only team to use the Lamborghini engine in 2021, however they haven't ruled out supplying to other teams in the future. Speaking of engines, because we will be going into the fantasy era, it means that teams don't have to follow what they did in real life. One of these examples is McLaren, as unlike in real life where they switched to Mercedes engines, the working base team will continue to use Renault engines in 2021. The other example involves Renault, as unlike in real life where the team rebranded as Alpine, in 2021 the team will still be known as Renault for as long as they want. The only change from the real life 2021 season that will happen in 2021 is the name of Racing Point. Just like in real life, the team will be rebranded as Aston Martin, as a result of Lawrence Stroll buying a stake in the car company. And just like in real life, they will not rebrand their engines as BWT Mercedes, instead it will just be Mercedes. The penultimate thing that we know about is the fact that for the first time in GP4 OC history, all 11 teams will be having a car launch during the off-season. At the end of the sign-up video, along with the announcement of the car launches, it was also revealed who the livery editing team was for the fantasy era. These people being Joseph Willows, Evan Byrne, Ennis Paretsky and Barbara Maffesoni. Barbara, for anyone who is unfamiliar with her, is the real-life girlfriend of Bruno de Barros, and she does a lot of graphic and livery design for other games such as R Factor. You can find some of her work in the description down below once this video gets uploaded. Yuri Marta will also be a backup for livery editing in case he is needed. In terms of which teams each designer will be working on, that will be left a secret until the car launches, as their name will be credited in the description of each car launch. It should also be noted that the livery Lamborghini had in the 11th team reveal will not be the final livery. The actual livery will be revealed in the off-season. It is very exciting times for the OC, and we cannot wait for you to see the 2021 liveries during the off-season. The final thing that we know about is the Provisional Calendar that got revealed this past Sunday. There will once again be 21 races on the calendar, with the races happening in 2020 still being on the calendar for 2021. The most notable changes are the fact that Baku has been moved forward to round 3, Suzuka has been moved forward to round 14, and the biggest one being that the Bahrain Grand Prix has been pushed back to round 19 in order to have a back-to-back with Abu Dhabi. Brazil remains as the finale, despite the fact that the 2021 season will mark the first season that their veto right to be the finale will be invalid. On top of that as well, the Mexican Grand Prix name will return for the race at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez after the 2020 race will be known as the Mexico City Grand Prix. Some people will probably be a bit disappointed that there aren't any new or returning tracks that have been added onto the calendar. They could still be, given the fact the calendar is only provisional, however Yuri hasn't ruled out having changes in the future. So they are all the things we know so far, so with that out of the way, let's look at some of the rumours that have dominated the paddock. For starters, we will go through this season's pick order. The pick order is on your screen right now, and the eligibility of everyone's picks, as per usual, will be based on this. Lamborghini has the most number 1 picks with 11, followed by Williams who have 9. Haas are third with 8, with McLaren surprisingly high up in 4th with 6. There is a 4-way tie for 5th between Alfa Tauri, Ferrari, Aston Martin and Renault, with those 4 teams having 5. The order of those 4 was determined by the number of overall picks each team got. Alfa Romeo surprisingly placed pretty low down in 9th with 4, with Red Bull in 10th with 3, and Mercedes in last with 2. So now we are going to go through each team, and unlike in previous seasons, we are going to go through them based on the pick order. Starting off with the brand new team Lamborghini. This team has been very interesting during the silly season given the fact that they are a new team. Before the silly season began, a lot of people thought that Franco Gamba and Emilia Wilson would be the early favourites for the Lamborghini seats. However, the pair of them have chosen different teams as their number 1 choice, so it's highly unlikely those two will be at the team. One driver who is rumoured to join Lamborghini is current Ferrari driver Laura Chung, as she has put Ferrari's Italian rivals as her number 1 choice. Laura has made her ambitions clear that she wants a new challenge, and Lamborghini could be that destination. Along with Laura, there are a number of drivers who could be there, such as GP2 drivers Mohammed Usman Ahmed and Rahul Patel, Formula E Championship contenders Duray Daniel, Xavier Wei and Robert Ionescu, to even Manor driver Rosetta Martinez. Though like with Laura Chung, it is thought that his performances may need to pick up. Benz Waldinger has also been mentioned, but like with Rosetta in the top class, he will need to pick up his performances in GP2. It will be interesting to see who Lamborghini chooses for their first lineup. Moving on to Williams, and it is looking highly likely that they will retain their current lineup of Felix Sontag and Jamie Griffiths, given the pair are currently doing a good job for the team, both of them having the same ambition of trying to turn Williams around. However, it should be noted that if one of them drops off, don't be surprised if the likes of Luca Farina, Adam Chobar and even current test driver Joseph Federic Souto pitch their 2 cents in. Next up we have Haas, and one thing we do know for certain with this team is that they will have at least one change in their lineup, as 2017 BTCC and 2019 GP2 champion Dudu Kirby will be retiring from the OC as a whole at the end of this current season. According to his brother JP, Dudu is believed to have fell out of love with this series and has taken the decision to retire to give other people a chance to be in the top class. For everybody at GP4 OC, we wish Dudu all the very best in the future. In terms of who will replace him, there are rumours flying around that current Manor driver Emilia Wilson could end up replacing him, given that she has put Haas as her number 1 choice. Emilia has had a very good rookie season, despite this year's Manor not being that good. It was originally thought she would put Lamborghini as her first choice, however in the end she went with Haas. Other rumours include Formula E Championship leader Agatina Pavona, current GP2 driver Luca Farina should he miss out on Williams, former Haas driver and current Ferrari test driver Bartosz Kloss, and even current Haas test driver and former Haas driver at the same time Jared Fosbury. Daniel Fraser is rumoured to remain at the team, but he could get booted out if his performances keep dropping, but we will have to wait and see. Moving on to McLaren, and there is a good chance that they could end up retaining their lineup of Kirishima DeRosa and Joseph Willows. However, given his shaky season so far, if Willows' performance starts to dip again, then don't be surprised if current GP2 Championship contender Hoang Minh Nguyen and even current McLaren test driver Hento Sinonome try and nab the seat away from him. Moving on to AlphaTauri, and this one is very interesting. This team could still end up retaining Chris Chatfield and David Kupok, however one of them could still be booted out as a result of a shocking rumour that came towards the back end of the sign-offs. The driver I'm on about is current Red Bull driver and 2009 world champion Miklos Gal. Yep, you are not hearing things. There is a good chance that Miklos could be heading back to Red Bull's sister team, which he last drove for in 2008 when they were known as Toro Rosso, where he got his first ever win in what would be considered by many as a bizarre move. Miklos stated that his reasoning for putting them as his number one choice is that given that AlphaTauri is essentially acting like a sister team rather than a junior team, he believes that he could try and help the team steer in the right direction to the point where they will end up being ahead of Red Bull again like they were back in 2008 and maybe challenge one day for greater things. As a result of this, both Chris Chatfield and David Kupak may need to watch their backs. Sticking with Italy, we move on to Ferrari, who have gone backwards this season. Laura Chong, as stated earlier, could leave the team at the end of the season due to her putting Lamborghini as her number one choice. However, she could still be at Ferrari should her number one choice fall through. However, even if she does miss out on a Lamborghini drive, she could still end up losing out on Ferrari, as it is rumoured that current Renault driver and Chinese Grand Prix winner Jake Galloway could end up making the move to the prancing horse, given that he has put Ferrari as his number one choice and the fact that he has had an amazing rookie season at Renault. Roberto Gamba, meanwhile, is looking highly likely to remain at Ferrari for another season after what has been a brilliant comeback to the top class for the Italian. However, it is worth noting that should Roberto for whatever reason drop his performances in the second half of the season, then don't be surprised if Chris Chatfield becomes a contender for Ferrari given the situation at AlphaTauri and the fact that he has the prancing horse as his number two choice. Moving on to the rebranded Aston Martin, and this could be very interesting. Roland Motrin is looking highly likely to remain at the team for another season. However, it is looking highly likely that five-time race winner George Rowe could be leaving the team at the end of the season due to him putting another team as his number one choice that is lower than Aston Martin in the pick order. More on that later. In terms of who might replace him, it could end up being a straight fight between current DTM Championship contender Julius Anderson and current GP2 Championship leader Aaron Curtis. Both of them are currently having a good season, and it will be very interesting to see who ends up getting the Aston Martin seat. Moving on to Renault, not Alpine, and as expected, Evan Byrne is highly likely to remain at the team for what would be a fifth successive season. However, as we have established earlier, Jake Galloway could leave the team at the end of the season due to the fact that he has Ferrari as his number one choice. He does have Renault as his number two choice, however if he ends up at Ferrari, then like with Aston Martin, there could be a straight up fight. This time involving current DTM Championship leader Romain Quagg, who is determined to get back in the top class, and current Renault test driver, current GP2 Championship contender and 2019 BTCC champion Jesus Perinen. Both of them also have another team as a backup should they miss out, but it will be very interesting to see who ends up getting the Renault seat should Jake go to Ferrari. Next up we have Alfa Romeo, and this team has a very long list of contenders. Andre Vaderi is likely to remain at the team for another season, however Gabriel Gomez is a bit of a question mark for the second successive season given the Brazilian is having another tricky season. If Gabriel ends up getting the chop, then there are, as mentioned, a lot of contenders who could take the seat. These include Romain Quagg and Jesus Perinen should they miss out on Renault, Hoang Min Nguyen should he miss out on McLaren, current GP2 Championship leader Aaron Curtis should he miss out on Aston Martin, current AlphaTauri driver David Kupak should he miss out on the AlphaTauri drive, Formula E Championship leader Agatina Bavona, and GP2 drivers Ruslan Proxiu, Mohamed Usman Hamid and Rahul Patel. This one, like in previous seasons, will be interesting and one that could go either way. The penultimate team we will look at today is Red Bull, and this one, as we have touched on earlier, could also see a shake-up given that Miklos Gal has put AlphaTauri as his number one choice. However, despite that, it might not even matter, as the current Red Bull drivers may be fighting for one of those seats, as it is rumoured that a certain driver could be booting one of them out. That driver being current Racing Point driver George Rowe, who is determined to get back at the top team for 2021. If he ends up going to Red Bull for 2021, it would be the first time since 2006 that Rowe would drive for the Milton Keynes-based team. In terms of Franco Gamba, as we have touched on briefly, his fate at Red Bull mainly rests on Miklos Gal going to AlphaTauri, as if the Hungarian doesn't end up at AlphaTauri, then he could get retained by Red Bull, given he's put them as his number two choice. And given Franco's up and down season, it could leave him out of a drive, but we will have to wait and see. Finally, we move on to Mercedes, and no surprise to anyone, it is looking highly likely that they will retain their lineup of Franco Lopez and Amar Kar for another season. If they get retained, then some of the questions that people will be asking will be, will the pair keep it tidy this time given their recent collisions, and will Mercedes still be fighting at the front in 2021 given it will be the first season of the fantasy era? It will be fascinating to see what the pecking order will look like in the first season of the fantasy era. And they are all the rumours that have dominated the paddock. And with that, that concludes the pilot episode for the GP4 OC News Series 8. The first team news of the season will break at the Hungarian Grand Prix next week. Who will be the first to be announced? Tune in to practice next Tuesday at the Hungaroring in Budapest. Hello, everybody, and welcome. You can hear my voice again. Welcome to round 11 of the 2020 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the famous Silverstone circuit in Northamptonshire for the British Grand Prix. I am JW97, and I am joined today by GP2 commentator Robert Ionescu. How are you doing?
Hello, Joe. I'm doing. I just had a meal, so that's why I had to delay just a little bit. But I'm here now, and yeah, ready for this practice session. I think it's going to be exciting.
Indeed so. Well, as you can see, you've got the weather on your screen. As you can see, it is going to be wet for practice. But as you can see, it can be slight changeable because it seems that the rain is going to get a little bit lighter. But whether it will do anything to the track is another question. Whether it'll be an omen for the race, of course, we don't know because we are yet to have a wet race this season in the OC. And a lot of people are banking on Silverstone being the track where we get the wet race in 2020 because all 10 races this season have just been bone dry. So going into this, one note that we do need to mention is that we do have a test driver in the car for today, and that is that Jesus Perinen will be driving the Renault today at Silverstone in place of Evan Byrne. So you'll be seeing Galloway and Perinen in the Renault for today. And as you can see,
I think Bernard needs that. He's qualified in the top 5, I believe, for GP2, so this could be some good practice for him.
Indeed, so he's qualified in 4th, I believe, Rob, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, he is in the top 5.
Well, it is in the top 5, yes.
You were correct there. They're on intermediate tyres. Now, one thing I do need to bring up as well is that you may have noticed just on the right of your screens there, the Williams is looking a bit different. In fact, there's one coming out now, and we're going to see this Williams around about now once it comes out on the track. Now, some of you will be familiar with this livery, but for those of you who only tuned into F1 halfway in the 2020 season when the rescheduled calendar came out, this was the original Williams livery. There it is. The Rocket Williams livery is being used this week for the Williams as it does represent the colours of the United Kingdom. Both Sontag and Jamie Griffiths will be running this livery this week at Silverstone. And yeah, a very, very pretty livery indeed. It was quite a popular livery, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2020. Although I do believe that a lot of people actually prefer the actual livery they used when they came back after COVID. So yeah, there's the livery that Williams is using, and it's obviously had some tweaks as well to ensure that people's sponsors are on the car as well. So yeah, what do you guys think of the Rocket Williams livery?
I think that when you look at it from the side, it looks like the flag of the Czech Republic. I'm gonna be honest with that.
Well, yeah, well, a lot of people nicknamed it the Colgate toothpaste car because it did look a little bit like toothpaste. But yeah, that is the Williams that's being run this week at Silverstone. Both Jamie Griffiths and Felix Sontag running at for this week. And so, yeah, as Felix is hoping that the livery isn't a curse, because there seems to be a thing in the OC where special liveries happen to have a bit of a curse in the OC. We're not sure why. Only the odd few occasions where you don't have it, but yeah, it has been a bit of a bad omen. Hopefully that's not going to be the case for Williams at their home Grand Prix.
Well, if I could touch on that on the topic of special liveries, last time I ran a special livery, which was in 2015 at Austria, I took the podium after a race-long fight for the win of Florian Volker. I finished second, and it ended up being my last podium, but it was a very well-deserved podium considering how slow the 315 Red Bull was. So that special livery brought me some luck. Hopefully Zontag will get some luck as well this time.
Indeed so, and it looks like the Ferrari behind is actually starting to catch up a bit to Felix Sontag. Now, for those of you who didn't see, of course, who've only just joined us, of course, we just had the pilot episode that came out, although interesting rumours flying about. But one thing that we do know for certain about some of the drivers on the current grid, a couple of people have already mentioned it over the last couple of weeks in stream chats, but that is that Dudu Kirby will be retiring from the OC as a whole at the end of the season, which, to be fair, I'm a little bit sad about that one, really, because obviously, Rob, you obviously had the experience of watching him in GP2, and of course he came through the ranks from BTCC as well. He seemed like a driver who could do something, but due to him falling out of love with the series, he's not going to be around after 2020.
Well, I saw him last season in GP2, and he was absolutely incredible. That's all I'm going to say. That drive at Mugello alone, when in just a few laps you went from 15th on the grid to fighting for the lead, that was an incredible drive, a drive that gave the GP2 championship in the end. And yeah, I'm actually sad he's going so early, and yeah, hopefully we'll see him again someday.
Hopefully so. We wish Dudu all the very best in the future when the 2020 season, of course, comes to a close. As meanwhile, Roberto Gama tried to find a way through there on Felix Sontag, and in fact tagging the back of him there, and giving him a little bit of a bump and run, as we call it. Has Roberto actually gone for a spin? He has indeed. So it seems that he might have aquaplaned a little bit. Let's have a look at a replay from Roberto's point of view. And yeah, just let these
Don't say it. Don't say it. Spinala.
Of course, a Ferrari spinning, of course. But
My
luckily, there's enough
goodness.
of a gap for everybody to go through on, so there shouldn't be too much of a problem. Willow's currently at the top, of course. Well, only briefly, as Roberto now has damage, so he's got to do a full rotation to get back to the pits. Hopefully, he doesn't do what what his cousin did a couple of seasons ago when he was at Haas. He might do actually. Oh,
He's done it
okay.
massively wrong, and he's taken out Martinez.
Martinez looks like he did survive and then he doesn't. So yeah, he has done what his cousin did a couple of seasons ago. A bit of a curse in the Garber family. So
if you're gonna make embarrassing mistakes during the race weekend, make them in practice when it doesn't count.
Exactly. Luckily, this was in practice and not in qualifying. Meanwhile, Roberto Garber's teammate Laura Chung currently at the top early on in this session. Apologies if you can hear the dogs in the background. So I think there's a visitor that's just arrived at the door. They do like to bark at the door, do my dogs? Or as people like to call it, dog commentary whenever they bark. So yeah, here's a replay from Martinez's perspective, and yeah, pretty similar to what we saw back in 2018 with Franco Garber. Although I'd say a little bit less consequences, because the one with Sontag and Franco is a little bit bigger than that one. That looks like a slow crash.
Yeah, indeed. Either way, it was just incredibly weird, and I can't really find an explanation from that. That was just fully clumsy from Roberto Gamba, but he's not going to be getting any penalties for that. It's just practice. He'll be getting back in the T-car soon, and hopefully forgetting about this.
Indeed, so we just saw we were run on board briefly there with Jesus Prinning. He goes 15 for the moment. I don't know if he had to slow down a little bit there because of the yellow flags. QPOC also 2 seconds down. You do often see quite big gaps forming whenever there's wet conditions, and it looks like the conditions are slightly changing every time, because you do remember when Felix came out, it was a bit dry going through into Village there. So
Indeed. Speaking of Felix, look at his teammate Jamie Griffiths. He's all the way up in the 10th place. He's had an incredible lap.
P10 so far for Jamie Griffiths, just behind current championship leader Franco Lopez, who last time out in Austria won from 10th on the grid and has given himself a very big lead at the top of the championship, 63 points between himself and Almar Carr due to the infamous pit entrance glitch that happened between himself and Franco Garber. And now Almar Carr has got it all to do now if he wants to try and win his first world title this season. But a lot of people saying it might be championship over already.
It's not over till the fat lady sings. Sure, yeah, Kai is at disadvantage, but if I know anything about this championship, you don't give up until it's over.
As we had one of those Russian bots in the stream chat there that we've been seem to be accustomed to getting the odd few times in the stream. They don't seem to stop, do they? Meantime, Kirishima DeRosa coming into the pits for McLaren. As meantime, the two Mercedes are actually together. Try and keep it tidy, boys, as I said in the pilot episode. Anyway,
is Lopez trying to win from 10th on the grid again? Because with his pace right now, it definitely seems like he's considering it.
That'd be down to the weather, perhaps, of course, because it was a little bit drier when Felix Sontag came out. Maybe the conditions are changing that little bit more. As Emilia Wilson comes into the pits as her teammate.
She makes way for her teammate.
She's just gone back out in the spare car. In fact, Roberto Garber still had to get out from the spare car because they were still clearing his cars. You just saw there on the top right whilst we were running on board with Rosetta Martinez. We should see Roberto back on the track very soon in that spare car.
Well, he was beginning a lap.
Rosetta starts a lap. Roberto hasn't got that far to walk, so he should be able to get back on track pretty quickly. And in the spare car, of course, is through turn 2, then goes Rosetta Martinez before making his way towards turn 3. And now look at Dudu Kirby, of course, who we just mentioned a little bit earlier, will be retiring from the OC as a whole at the end of the season. And of course, that will mean there will be at least one new driver. Whoa, that was pretty close.
That was incredibly tight. And I might touch again here, but thankfully not. Willow still has to go very wide. But he's got the track position.
Was Willows and Sontag there getting very close to each other, going through into the Vale complex there. Judges have judged that one to perfection. Thank you very much, James. Very close for comfort there. Thank God it didn't end in a crash between the pair of them. They have had a history of collisions over the season in the OC. Just look at Belgium 2007 as an example, where they basically handed the victory to Jay McKenzie on that day.
This instance right now was a little clumsy, but Sontag is very experienced. He knew how much pace he had to give, and thankfully didn't touch. As we're on board with Franco Gamba into Chapa, it looks a little drier, I'm going to tell you that much. As now Willows is undisturbed.
I think the track is slightly starting to get a little bit drier as we speak right now. Whether it will stay like that, I'm not 100% sure, because the conditions can be a bit weird on Grand Prix 4. We did see yesterday, of course, during the GP2 qualifying, just how weird the conditions can get around here.
Yeah, indeed, it was extremely weird, as Lopez has improved, but he's only happened to 8th place. Cleared a lot of sandbags from Mercedes camp.
But that could also suggest that the track is improving, of course, because we remember as well when Lopez was around Carr, whether that was down to Carr, whether that was because of another reason, Lopez wasn't able to improve for a while. But it seems that there's still time out there to improve upon, so maybe we could see a lot more improvements happening as the session progresses. As Sontag again holding up cars, this time in the form of Gabriel Gomez, who we mentioned there in the rumour mill. It seems that yet again the Brazilian is under pressure to perform, as given so far this season, it's fair to say that Videri has probably had the edge on him this season.
Yeah, so it seems, but Gabriel Gomez is not one to be underestimated. You can remember from 2015 in GP2 when he lost the title in a quite dramatic circumstances with his rival Tiernan coming back from 20 points down in the last race to beat him. I think he learned from that moment, and Gabriel Gomez is never going to give up. He learned a very tough lesson in that beating he got in GP2 in Brazil. But ever since then, he's been a fighter through and through. And if he loses the seat, he won't lose it without a fight.
Indeed, so we know how that Gabriel Gomez has come back from adversity in the past. I mean, let's not forget, as mentioned in the pilot episode, he was under pressure last season and he was able to retain his seat. So he probably needs that sort of energy again if he wants to still be with Alfa Romeo.
We have a 3-1 moment here.
Near 3-1 moment, as Franco Gamba is trying to get by on his good friend Andrea Videri there. Videri, of course, who last time out in Austria put in a hell of a performance to finish in P5 in the Alfa Romeo. At one point, Franco Gamba thought he could challenge for a podium, but in the end, he ended up finishing in P5. It was a brilliant result and probably deserved of the driver of the day that he got voted for.
Yes.
Just one word there from Rob. Just in total agreement there.
Well, it doesn't have to be complex. I think it's without a doubt who the driver of the day should have been for Austria, and the people made the correct choice.
Simplicity the key there when it comes to responses. You don't need to make it too complicated. As Joseph Wells we're looking at right now, all the drivers at the moment still in intermediate tyres. That's because there are still some wet patches out there. But how long, given that the conditions look to be slightly improving at the moment, as we saw with Lopez?
Gamba's getting overtaken there.
He is. I wonder if the conditions get a bit drier. Then again, as we mentioned yesterday, the conditions can get a bit weird here around Silverstone.
Indeed. Sector 2 is still very much wet, especially into left field. But look, on the road towards Cobbs, it almost seems entirely dry. Almost.
Not Williams engine cars, to be specific, Felix. Mercedes engine cars, to be exact, because I had trouble with manners in France. But you're right there, Felix. If anybody has seen the stream chat, you can tell just how much ranty I get whenever I get stuck behind a Mercedes powered car. Speaking of improvements, Roberto Gamba has got to fourth.
One thing you didn't touch in the team news is that Hiroshima De Rosa for next season, assuming he remains in the top class, but from the team news episode, he is likely to remain at McLaren. If he remains, he'll be switching to the Italian flag because he signed up.
I believe I did say that actually.
All right.
I believe I did say that actually. Yes, I did. I said in the news video that there's a good chance that both Kirishima De Rosa and Joseph Willows would get retained by McLaren, but I was mainly focusing on the Joseph Willows point there because of his. Yes, I'm going to say it, Evan. Shaky season. You got a problem with that?
Well, in any case, as I was saying, De Rosa has confirmed that if he is still in the top class for next season, he'll be racing under the Italian flag. So that's a welcome change.
Yeah. I've only just realised that people have only started doing drinking contests whenever I say the word shaky season. So
you're done it again.
But we are seeing a lot more improvements now happening on the track, and I've noticed as well that the Renault's got a very special sponsor on the side for this week at Silverstone. So just a note there.
I didn't see it.
It's just on the side pods, in fact.
All right, I'll take a look next time we get to it.
Yeah. I said, yeah. I think people are taking a lot of drink on this. But judging from De Rosa and Galloway and Roberto Garma's improvements, I think it suggests that the track is getting better out there. So maybe we could see a lot more improvements happening. Not for Franco Garma at the moment, because he's way off in the middle sector, 3 seconds off at this
Also,
point in
that
time.
he's coming into the pits.
Is indeed. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the tyres we're using for this week is the hard tyres, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
The white wall hard tyres. So maybe once, as we've seen in the past, because I do remember there has been often times, you can see the sponsor right now, in fact, Robert's just on the side pod there. But as you see that...
Let me look.
This.
I see it.
Meantime, Wilson goes up to 4th, so that suggests that the conditions are improving as the Manor gets up into 4th position.
That's massive.
As Perinen is on improvement, but he's got all this traffic in front of him, so that's not going to help him out. As he now makes his way down towards Vale and Club. Is he going to actually make a move on the Williams of Jamie Griffiths like Joseph Willows did on Sontag earlier? He's going to have a think about it, but Griffiths says no to that. So,
well, he tried a similar move, but he just didn't have the same confidence and experience when trying to make it as Joseph Willows, so he's going to have to try it again.
Griffiths, despite that little bit, he goes into 12th. Galloway goes up to 2nd now, just a 10th off of Franco Garma at this point in time. Franco Garma, in fact, has just come back into the pits.
It's very funny. The track looks worse than at the start of the session, but it's actually much faster. Chris Stratfield has gotten up to a very impressive 2nd in the AlphaTauri.
They're just taking chunks out of Franco Garma now. It wouldn't be too long, I don't think, until we see somebody actually go to the top of the timing sheets. Who, though, we'll have to wait and see as Martinez makes his way around Brooklands. And then into Luffield he will go, as he's currently on the intermediate tyres. In fact, there's a good reason for that. I've only just realised that. Some of them are actually on slick tyres. Look at Perinen's car, look. You can see that he's on the white wall hard tyres. So there are some cars out there on the dry tyres, and I presume that the guys who've been improving are on the dry tyres. Gal now goes
one
to
of them being Miklos Gal.
He goes to the top by nearly 4/10 of a second, so it's a Red Bull 1-2 at this point in time. As Perinen, that was quite close there with the Williams of Griffiths, as they were also trying to find a way through on Rosetta Martinez as well at the same time. As we look at Daniel Fraser, who makes his way through the first 2 turns, he's also on the dry tyres. And Fraser's currently down in 20th, so we should see him shoot up the timing table as soon as possible. And now both runners are involved. As Carl now.
Carl's gone quick as Desperian finally makes that move. Galloway's going to try to follow through.
Now goes top by 7/10 of a second, so the Ferrari gets to the top of the timing sheets. As now we look at Fraser's. Look at this big traffic jam that's happening. This is just like standard motorway traffic that you get on the UK, in fact. So
well, I wouldn't know about that, so I'll take your word for it. But my goodness me.
To put it simply, it's usually quite terrible, especially at rush hour, Rob. That's all you need to know. Roken
fair enough.
Only up to 12. I wonder if he was involved in that big traffic jam that we just saw going down the straight.
Chatfield's improved it again. And let's stay on board with Daniel Fraser, because as you can see on the def panel in the top right corner, he's improving, but Martinez is definitely not improving as he's just gone off.
And they're all going to try and fumble their way through, and that nearly became a disaster there as 3 cars were trying to go into 1, going through into Village there after Martinez's mistake going through into... Sorry, that was Aintree, that corner was, where he was going into Village, as Q-Pot just squeezes his way through past the Renault there. Not sure which Renault that was he just got by. So we're going to take a look at a replay now, and let's see what happened then. So going through into there, I think it was Perinen that was the one that was getting swarmed there by Q-Pop, and as you can see there, Martinez probably just got a little bit spooked there by Jake Galloway, who was behind him, and then seeing a lot of close calls in this. Seeing a lot of close calls in this practice session, it's fair to say.
Someone ought to remind these guys that race day is only tomorrow.
And to confirm my theory of why Roke only got 12th, it is because he is stuck behind this traffic as we are riding on board with him. As Gomez, meanwhile, goes up to 9th. Kirby goes into 10th. What's Fraser doing? Let's keep an eye on him. He's down in 20th. Here he is.
Gal's coming back to 2nd, but let's stay on board Daniel Fraser.
Just coming around the final few turns. Where can he get up in the Haas? His teammates up
there in goes 5th.
Position. His teammates up in 11th, so let's see what Fraser can do as he's now going to cross the line. We're not going to see it, but look on the time screen, he goes 9th, so he gets himself into the
good
top
effort
10.
there, as Galloway is getting passed by Q-Pop there. Good move, and Roke is still stuck behind these guys. Roke heavily rumored to be going to Red Bull next season.
He is indeed, and obviously the last time Roke drove for Red Bull, of course, was back in 2006, as Lopez now goes to the top by 7/10 of a second, exactly a second quicker than Carr. In fact, look at that. As he went into 3rd there, but yeah, Roke is rumoured to potentially be going back to
the
Red
sandbags.
2021. We've seen quite a lot over the last few seasons. A lot of the elder drivers going back to their old teams. So there's a little bit of content there. Speaking of Roke, with one of the Alpha Tauris there. Not sure if that was Kupok or Chatfield. It might be Kupok, in fact. And yes, it is Kupok, I think. Unless that's Kupoking from the Renault there, I'm not sure.
It is Chatfield, I believe.
I think it's Chatfield because I think it's the Fernando Alonso helmet. So, but interestingly enough, with Alpha Tauri, you might as well just talk about it whilst we're at it. There was a big surprise when people saw what happened there towards the back end of the sign-ups. Mikel Oscar put in Alpha Tauri as his number 1 choice ahead of Red Bull, which is just his number 2 choice. Now, obviously, I think it's fair to say I think a lot of people were quite shocked about that because I don't think anybody had the words Mikel Oscar to Alpha Tauri on their lips. So, I'm pretty sure you're probably just as shocked as everybody else, Rob.
Well, I am definitely very shocked because my plan initially was to keep AlphaTauri as my first choice. But in the last hour of the sign-ups, somebody decided to go for AlphaTauri, and obviously that had to change my plan. But this was a major shock. I'm not sure if it's the correct move or not, but my goodness, nobody expected that. And nobody expected Sheffield breaking his front wing off just now.
He broke the front wing now, so I was just paying attention to the chat. I heard a little bit of a sound in my ear that the car had gone like it was going off. Let's just have a look again. Just understeer, really, wasn't it? And he even lost the back end on the exit because of all the damp patches that were there.
Yeah, you need to still keep a degree of caution in these moist conditions.
Indeed. Well, he's got some damage and he'll have to come back into the pits, of course. The AlphaTauri drivers, as I mentioned in the pilot episode, because of the Mikel Oscar rumour, will probably need to watch their backs, both Chatfield and Kupok. Luckily for them, they do have a backup choice, but those backup choices have got some stiff competition, it's fair to say. Ferrari in the case of Chris Chatfield, and of course Alfa Romeo in the case of David Kupok. In the meantime, Chung and Lopez improve a bit further to improve on their times. They're currently up in 3rd and 2nd. Franco Garmo, who's now on the slick tyres, goes into 3rd position.
On the AlphaTauri situation, I'd like to add, I think for Kupok and Chatfield, for both of them, it's do or die at this point.
Who knows, really? And Franco Garmo making a prediction that Miklos will be in the top 5 next season. So that's his prediction. As meantime, Roke improves, Kupok improves, and several others have improved as well, including Galloway, who Roke was trying to pass there as well. These two, of course, got a podium last time out in Austria, although it's fair to say with Roke, he was lucky to get that 2nd place, given what happened towards the back end of the race, which, speaking of which, this guy was involved in. It's might as well pointed out that Daniel Fraser, as we're looking at him, let's not forget, does have a 5-place grid penalty for this race after causing the first crash that happened up at Remus with Kirishima De Rosa and Evan Byrne, and then later on he was involved in a separate accident a corner later involving Jake Galloway, who lost his front wing, and of course Chris Chatfield, who basically swerved across and basically, you could say, spooked Daniel Fraser, which caused the concertina effect. Of course, Chatfield got the 10-second time penalty as a result of that. But of course, for Fraser, it was gutting for him because he was in contention for some good points. Haas yet to score a point this season, and that could have broke their duck this season. But unfortunately, he got himself involved in a collision, which obviously he deserved the penalty, and then involved in a separate collision in the end.
Well, it was a very bizarre series of events for the Haas driver. As meanwhile, Franco Lopez is now top by a full second, so the sandbags are definitely off. Meanwhile, Jake Galloway is still racing with Roke.
Kagama's gone up to 2nd, meanwhile, under a 2nd behind his fellow Franco. As Galloway now then makes his way down towards Vale Club. That part of the track's still wet at the moment, but the conditions are improving, as you can see, judging from the lap times, as Kirishima De Rosa slots into 4th position. Lap times improving all the time in this session, as Fraser makes his way through Woodcote, still up on his personal best. Kupok up into 10th. Galloway, meanwhile, remains in P15. I wonder if that's got something to do with Roke behind at the moment, who are both holding each other up at this point in time.
Well, I just noticed on his dev panel he was only 500 down on his personal best, was Jake Galloway. So now that he doesn't have so much traffic, he should be able to improve on this one.
We'll see, really. But he does have... is Roke behind? I think Roke's still behind him, so he could still have trouble with him.
Wilson and Zontag have improved.
They have indeed. 15th and 18th go the pair. As Daniel Fraser still up on his personal best at the moment, as Gal goes up to 2nd, 7 tenths off of Franco Lopez. As Fraser now then, where's Fraser at the moment? He's currently in 13th. Can he get the Haas back into the top 10? Let's see. As Motrin goes up into 4th in the Racing Point. Of course, that team will be known as Aston Martin next season, as we know. So the only thing from real life that is going to change in the fantasy era, as Fraser does get into the top 10, specifically in P10. So...
yeah, and another thing we know about the Racing Point is that Roland Motrin is very likely to remain at the team.
There is a very good chance that Rowan will remain on the team. It's fair to say that both Motrin and Roke, with this very improved racing point, have done a cracking job this season. You could argue that Roke has probably had the better season compared to Motrin, as Franco Garma, meanwhile, improved.
Roke is doing better in the championship, but Motrin has one thing going for him. It's the quali battle. It's 7-3 in his favor as of right now.
I think that's fair to say that Motrin has been the better qualifier this season compared to Roke. So we've got some more improvements. We just saw earlier that Chung got herself within under 3 tenths behind Lopez.
Galloway's going to be 12.
A lot more. There's lots of improvements happening all the time. There was 4 people there who just did an improvement. I was just about to say that De Rosa and Roberto Gamba are 4th and 5th at the moment. Willow's in 8th, Motrin 7th, Galloway 9th, and Kupok in 10th position, as Lopez is coming up to a bit of traffic. In fact, he's one of them lower Chung. In fact, the person who is currently in 2nd place behind him at the moment, as Wilson improves.
I don't believe that to be the case.
Roberto Gamba then. So
it is lower Chung actually. They're going to try to recreate Spa.
They're going to try and go 3 wide, going for into Stowe there. One of them's going to have to back out, I think, as Motrin gets into 7th. As we look at David Kupop, meanwhile, currently in 10th, up on his personal best as expected. Through into Cup's corner goes the German, and so far on improving at this point in time. As now through into Maggott and Beckett's. Fraser improves a bit more as Lopez extends his gap a bit further despite the freeway moment he had. He's now 7 tenths clear of Laura Chong and in fact came back into the pits so tried to get herself away from that bit of traffic.
Yeah, looks like Lopez might have got a little bit of tow as George Roque seems to be on a massive improvement, 4 tenths, but he's going to have to overtake that Renault lest he loses the improvement, and I think he's just lost it.
Yep, because again, Galloway and Roque can't seem to stop fighting each other at the moment on this track. Probably frustrating for the pair of them. Roberto Gamba.
I don't think they can stop fighting each other on any track, considering what happened last week.
Yep. Roberto Gamba, meanwhile, just slots behind his cousin to go into 4th position in the Ferrari. So 2-4 at the moment for the 2 Ferrari drivers. Ferrari
has still improved.
And so has Griffiths, in fact. He goes up into 8th in the Williams. As I was just saying there, of course, Ferrari will be hoping that they can turn around their misfortunes this season because, of course, they have gone backwards this season in 2020. But who knows with the fantasy era, they could be fighting back at the front next season with potentially Jake Galloway in the car because, of course, it is rumoured that he will be switching over to the Tifosi for next season as he's put them as his number 1 choice. And, of course, Laura Chung rumoured to potentially be going to Lamborghini. But a lot of rumours going on. Although I think it's fair to say I didn't think we got as many as I think we were anticipating, given it was the fantasy era, Rob.
Yeah, I guess so. One thing I'd like to say about Jake Galloway. First, to preface, I am not part of the sign-up process. I do not know the ratings. But I do believe it makes sense to assume Jake Galloway has the highest rating of everybody. So he is very, very likely to go to Ferrari, as that's what I'm thinking. Lopez has improved yet again, meanwhile.
Over a second now quicker of Laura Chung, as Kirby went into 15th there, as we rode on board with Galloway, who again has still got Roque disturbing him at the moment. Same for Roque when he comes to behind Galloway. Franco Gamba up to 2nd, Martinez up into 14th position now as lap times continue to tumble down as the track gets quicker and quicker and quicker. As speaking of quicker, Fraser again putting in some green lap times. Some more improvements to
Rosa goes third.
Car goes top now by. Car goes to the top now by nearly 6 tenths of a second at 128.460. I think it's fair to say that I think the British fans will probably be mainly cheering for Armagh Carr this season, given that Jose Willows is languishing in the midfield in 2020. So I think they'll be mainly putting their efforts on Carr to try and get the home support.
Well, they do have one other Brit to cheer for fighting at the top, don't forget, that being George Roque. But yeah, Armagh Carr is probably the number 1 hope of the British fans.
Indeed so. I don't believe he's ever won the British Grand Prix as Armagh Carr, so probably one thing that he'll want to try and tick off if he can. And he's probably got
Wilson
the best
has improved, and so has Pernin in the meantime.
Yeah, Perinin and Wilson have improved on their lap times as Roque makes his way around the long, swooping right-hander. He's actually coming into the pits this lap, so he's probably fed up now of being held up by Jake Galloway, as Fraser was actually down on his personal best in the middle sector, but let's see if we can try and pick it up in the last sector. In fact, we won't do because we're back to this little battle that's happening on the track.
Well,
Fraser
he did after all. But so is Lopez. He's gonna within half second of Armagh Carr.
Yep, taking a few hundreds out of the car there that time by, but still not able to dethrone him at the top at this point. It's a Mercedes 1-2, and then there are, of course, car over a second clear of Franco Gomez, still over a second clear, because despite Franco Gomez improving there, he's still 1.3 behind Armar Car. Is Roke going to actually get Galloway before he goes to the pits? And the answer to that is no. Galloway, will he still continue to do another lap after this one? Because he is still staying out, but will he still do another one afterwards? I'm not sure.
Russ has come back into fourth.
As Fraser might have to deal with the Mercedes behind it a little bit. I'm not sure which Mercedes that is. He's having to deal with.
I think that's Franco Lopez. Galloway has improved to go into 10th place. Meanwhile, as here we have Pernian trying to overtake, I believe that's Wilson.
Was one of the Manners, and so
I saw the yellow T-cam, so it can have been Martinez.
Indeed, of course. Manor heading into their final few races before, of course, pulling out at the end of the season to make way for the brand new Lamborghini team. Of course, the Manor drivers will not have a team connection with Lamborghini, as Perrin, meanwhile, goes up into third place in the Renault there.
And Ferrari is going to six, some massive improvements on the table there.
So the test driver, Jesus Perrin, goes into third position, all in a bit of practice for the GP2 race later on tonight at 7 p.m. As he's, of course, starting in fourth position. And probably a good chance to really eke in the championship, given that his rivals are behind him on the grid.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, of course, but we should never speak too early. Who knows what's going to happen? Silverstone can produce some amazing races with some big twists, so I don't think we should take anything for granted as of right now.
Indeed, as Roberto Gamba there was trying to find a way through on the
but
race.
Joe, I'd like to talk about Manor again, because as you were saying before we got interrupted by Burnham improving, they have just a few races to go, and their drivers don't have the team connection.
They don't, indeed. Obviously, in previous seasons, they would have had to, but because Lamborghini is a brand new team and it's a separate entity to Manor, their team connection will not go towards it. So, basically, as I was saying throughout the season, they're basically trying to, you could say, promote themselves to try and get a drive in 2021. We see, of course, that Wilson has put Haas as a number one choice. She's probably got a good chance of going there, given, of course, that Kirby is retiring at the end of the season. So we know that there is at least one seat available there at Haas, and then of course you've got Martinez, who's trying to get into Lamborghini, as we saw, as he put them as his number one choice. Whether he will or not, he might need to start picking up his performances though, because it's fair to say this season Rosetta, he has been quite unlucky this season, but at times he does seem a little bit off compared to Wilson.
Yeah, it's strange, I guess, but I think both drivers have been trying their best. Wilson has had a very strong rookie season, I can agree with that, but I think neither of them are prepared to kiss goodbye to top class as of yet. Wilson did state that she might retire after the 2021 season, but then nothing is final. But yeah, I do believe both drivers are very eager to remain in the top class, and they're going to give it their best shot. Wilson has a better chance, but Martinez is not going to give up on his quest for the Lambo seat.
Indeed so, and it will be very, as we said in the pilot episode, it will be very interesting to see who ends up being the first lineup for Lamborghini. Of course, as mentioned as well in the pilot episode, and I think I also said a couple of weeks ago, of course, 5 engine manufacturers in 2021. Lamborghini joined the fold along with Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda, and Renault, of course. A few more improvements as we have just over 1.5 minutes to go. Chung and Motrin improving on their times, 3rd and 7th at this point. As currently it's still a Mercedes 1-2 in this session. As we look at Videri there, it looked like, I think if I'm not mistaken there, he did get a little bit wobbly on the entrance there going through into Beckett. It did look like he made a mistake there.
Yeah.
Let's take a look as we ride on board with the Italian. And yes, he did, I was right.
Snappo oversteered there. In the middle of Beckett's, you do not want to get that. As Griffith goes into 5th, that's an incredible improvement. His teammate is down in last.
Rocket livery definitely working at the moment for the Williams team at this point in time. As we know,
well, just for one of them.
At the moment, yeah, because Sontag's currently down in last position. But he is out there on the track. He still has time to possibly try and get an improvement in as Gao goes into 2nd place. And he's going to start a lap, in fact, on the dry tyre. So we should see a little bit more of a representative time for Felix Sontag. Only one flying lap, though. Gao 2nd. Kupok has gone up into 4th, meanwhile, in the Alfa Tauri. As Videri doesn't improve that time by. As under a minute to go now then in this session as the seconds tick down on the clock on the top of your screen, as Lopez now then around the final turn and onto the pit straight he will go now then. Let's see what Franco Lopez can do. Can he find an
He's
improvement?
down.
He can.
He was
fact,
down, but now he's gone up.
He now finds himself under 2 tenths behind our car. Could he possibly try and get to the top on his final flying lap? I don't believe he had the pit symbol on his name, so I think he's going to do one more flying lap. We're on board with Lower Chung, meanwhile, who's had a pretty good session, taking advantage of these conditions. Currently in 5th position. As she now makes...
Well, in this Ferrari, P5 is very solid. And Chung, I hope she can carry that momentum that she's been building in this practice session.
So she crosses the line, doesn't improve, remains in P5 as Motrin is on an improvement. Can he though, as he has lost time? He has found improvement, but only up into 9th position. His car doesn't improve, as Roberto Gomez went up into 9th. De Rosa doesn't improve, Willows doesn't improve as the seconds tick by. I think Willows is going to be the last one to cross the line, I think. As, we
checker
get
flag is out, Griffith is going to cross the line soon. Obviously, he's run out of time.
Yep, so it will be... as I was saying there, Willows was the last one to cross the line there, as Griffiths doesn't improve. Kirby just going out there for mileage. His fellow compatriot, Gabriel Gomez, now then, comes across the line. No improvement for him, as Rogue and Franco Gama just out doing mileage. Here it's Miklos Gal, currently in 3rd position. Looks like he's not on an improvement, but let's see anyway. Miklos Gal, across the line he goes in the Red Bull. He remains in 3rd position. Of course, Red Bull wanted to forget what happened last week when they had a double retirement at their home race. Here comes Felix Sontag. Let's see what representative time he can do. This surely should get him out of the last position, and it does. He goes up to 7th.
Very much so.
In front of his teammates, Jamie Griffiths. So 7th and 8th in this session for the two Williamses, as Perrinen and Wilson were just getting mileage runs there, as Lopez was coming back into the pit. So I do apologise there. He did have the pit symbol right there. As we now ride on board with Laura Chung, meanwhile. She makes her way through Chapel. And,
very aggressive on the exit there, but Chung gets a little bit down in the middle sector.
Indeed, as now Chung makes her way up towards Stowe Corner, flicking the car in for the right-hander. As now down the hill we go, then towards Vale, and then into the double right-hander of Club. Flicking the car in through the left, and then into the double right-hander we go. Now into the final corner and onto the pit straight goes Laura Chung, as she will now come across the line in the Ferrari. Across the line she will go, and she does not improve. Motrin, meanwhile, comes across the line on an improvement, and he loses time in the last sector and remains in P11. There's Josie Willows, the last one to cross the line, and no improvement, remains in 6th. And that
just 900s down. Yep, it is done.
With Franco Lopez 2nd and Miklos Gal in 3rd. So what do you make of that session overall, Rob?
One thing I want to add, David Kupok in 4th, that is amazing. So quite a lot of surprises from AlphaTauri, from Williams. I think we're set for a very, very intense qualifying session.
It could all depend on the weather as well. Well, we're just going to take a brief pause for a moment, guys, of course, and then we'll come back with a fresh stream for qualifying. But in the meantime, I've been JW97, he's been Rob, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session ahead of the British Grand Prix. See you in a bit.
Cheers, guys.